I'm about to give you a demo of the new Fortin Cali amp sim from Neural DSP, and let me just say this is probably the most musically diverse track that you'll ever hear. I wrote the song just for this video, so enjoy the tune, hang around after the song though, because we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this amp sim. I want to dig into the settings of the Fortin Cali here. So let's pull up the screenshot for the clean amp first. We've got 3 different channels we're going to go through, by the way. So this is the clean channel. Now, one thing you guys will notice about my settings across the board on pretty much everything, they're all very similar and there's nothing crazy going on. My settings are really simple. You know, I see some people's settings, they've got like the treble all the way up and the mids all the way up or all the way down or whatever, just extreme settings. That's just not my cup of tea or cup of coffee. A quick shameless plug, this is my Keep It Metal mug. I've got this and a ton of other really cool stuff on my shop. There's a link to that in the description of this video. That's an awesome way you can help support me. All right, so as you can see, this is the basic EQ settings that you would expect. Now, one thing I'll say about this amp, to get a super clean sound, and this is kind of obvious, you do have to have that gain turned down quite a bit, so you might have to turn up your master volume a little as well. I like to have a little grit, so I like to have a little bit of gain there, so if I do hit the strings harder, then it gives me some of that dirt. I just kind of like to hear that break up a little bit. 3 things I want to show you, and this is actually on every channel that we're about to go through here. There's a thump, which on this clean amp, I have that all the way off or all the way down, these little knobs here. And then you've got hair. I don't have any. And these are just some different tone shaping features. And then you've also got a bright switch. Now, I didn't have any pedals turned on in front of the amp. And if you guys are familiar with Neural DSP's Fortin NTS and Nameless, they've got the 3 pedals in front of the amp. All of these were turned off for my clean sound. Now let's dig into the cab and mic. Let's pull that up. Now you've got 1 cab on here, but you get a ton of tone shaping options with the different mics, and you can have 2 mics. Now I've got the simulators for the SM57 on 1 speaker, and I've got the Ribbon 121 simulation on the other speaker. That to me just gives me a really nice, crystal clear clean tone. Now let's dirty up our tones a little bit, and I'm going to show you the second channel. And actually, I'm going to show you 2 different tones, because what I did in the song, if you notice, it got a little heavier after the clean part, but then it got just a little heavier after that. So what I did here, just to show the diversity of the Fortin Cali, is I recorded some tracks with the gain kind of turned down just to give you that grit. In fact, you could play country music with this second channel here, easy. And then the second tone is with the gain cranked up, and that's giving us a little bit more of that hard rock, Queensryche, Scorpions, Dawkinish type of sound. Now the cool thing about the second channel, remember those little switches I told you about in the clean channel? Channels 2 and 3 actually have another switch, a 4th switch called Violence. You can imagine what that does. I did kick the thump on for this particular tone, and I think I've got that on from here on out. Now what's really cool about channels 2 and 3 is you've got 2 gain settings here, and of course I kept the gain kind of in the middle. Like you can see gain 1's a little up, but gain 2 is dialed back a little bit, and that just gave me a real nice dirty tone. Now for the mic and cab settings, I actually carried over the same settings I had for my clean channel using the SM57 and the Ribbon 121 mic simulators there. That just seemed to give me a really nice tone. And real quick, for that part of the song, I recorded 2 rhythm guitar tracks and hard panned each one. There's one thing I did not do in this particular part for this sound here. Normally, I alter the tone for that second track just slightly, and for whatever reason I forgot to do that. So normally what I do in this case is I would just use a different mic, just change out one of the mics, like the Ribbon 121 for the C414 or 420R or something like that, just to get a slightly different tone in that other speaker, so it just helps your mix sound more full. Now we're still on channel 2. I'm gonna give you a different screenshot for this. Really the only thing that changed here, and you can see all of my EQ settings and all, I just boosted the gain, both gains 1 and 2 a little bit, and that's giving me more of that edgy hard rock tone, or even like a classic metal tone, and this is like one of my favorite tones altogether. I did have 2 pedals turned on for this sound. I had the Zula pedal on, and I believe that's the noise gate, because I had the gain cranked up, so you do get some unwanted noise there without that once you crank the gain up. And then I had the hex drive on, which is just an overdrive. You can see my settings here, very simple. Now what about the cab and mics for this particular sound? Remember, this is a more hard rock, a more edgier tone, or even classic metal tone. So for one track, remember from here on, or from what I just shared on, I recorded 2 rhythm tracks hard panned each. So for the one track in the left, I did keep the SM57 and the ribbon 121. But then for the other speaker, I used the 421 sim instead. And having those 2 tones, you know, hard panned each track, just really sounded awesome. So that's a recording tip I'll share with you guys. You know, alter that second track's tone just a little bit, and that's just going to make your overall mix sound awesome. Now, I did have a lead guitar track here as well, and nothing special about the settings. All I did was I just cut the master volume up a little bit, and I boosted the mids and the bass just to give me a little bit more overall punch for my lead track. Now the channel you're all waiting for, and that's channel 3, the metal channel of the Fortin Cali by Neural DSP. Alright, so you've got pretty much all the same options as you do in channel 2. It's just your gain's a lot more powerful in channel 3 here. So you can see my gain settings on this amp. There's nothing crazy, and you can look through my EQ. There's nothing really over the top here as well. They're all pretty basic, you know. Everything's just a little off from being up the middle, maybe except for the treble. I like to boost my treble a little bit. I do cut the presence down for this particular amp as well. To me, that just sounds better, especially when you get into the metal tones. Now, remember those little switches at the bottom there? The violence. I have the violence switch turned all the way to the left, and that gave me a really nice tone. Again, those 4 little switches there, those just give you more tone shaping options, which is really, really cool if you want different metal tones for different songs or different projects or different bands or whatever. So that's just some really cool options to have. Now, pedals, I kept the first 2 pedals on. Of course, you got your noise gate, and I've got my overdrive pedal on as well. Those settings remain the same. Cab and mics. Now, for this particular tone, and remember, I'm going to give you 2 settings here because we've got 1 in the left track, 1 in the right track, hard pan. So for the tone you hear in the left track, for that one I'm using the SM57, and I'm pairing that with the ribbon 160. This gives an amazing tone. It's got a lot of nice punch to it. It just sounds really cool. However, let's turn over to the track that's hard panned right. As you can see, I kept the SM57 in place. I just think that mic always sounds good on pretty much most amp sims in general, but especially for this. But as you can see, I've got the C414 mic sim on the other speaker, and again, that blended with the other tone that we just went over with the ribbon 160, that just gives you a really nice full metal tone. Now, to be transparent with you guys, I have not pulled the plug and purchased the Fortin Cali from Neural DSP yet. I'm on that edge. So this is the demo version that you guys are hearing, but to my knowledge, the demo that you download from them, the free trial, is pretty much the same as the purchase version, so you really get a full demo version, which is nice of them to do that. I know a lot of plugins don't do that. They just give you like a watered down version. There's one thing I really wish that Neural DSP would do with the Fortin series. I wish they would add some sort of effects to these amp suites. I'd love to have like a reverb and delay that I could turn on after the amp. I mean, they've got all the stuff you need in front of the amp. You know, you've got your gate, you've got an overdrive, and you've got another pedal called grind, and those all work really awesome. But I'd really like to see some effects, you know, after the amp. You know, like the reverb, delay, because I use delays on all of my leads. I had to pull in a delay plugin for my studio for the lead tracks you heard earlier. Not necessarily a bad thing, you know, it'd just be much easier though if they would just add that stuff to this suite of amps. So maybe they'll see this part of the video. It's like, you know, Jason's right. Let's add some effects to this amp, because that would make it the perfect amp suite. Please consider supporting me. I'm going to have some other links in the description there. There's a link to my shop. Again, I've got mugs and shirts and my CDs from my latest album, Masterpiece. That's still available, guys. So go there to that link, and that's an awesome way you can support me. Also, my link for my Patreon is in the description as well. I'm giving away some exclusive stuff a few times a month to my Patreon supporters. So all that's in the description of this YouTube video. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. And as always, until next time, keep it metal.